Sentinel Sports Central beginning every college football game preview and prediction on the 2020 Myrtle Beach Bowl between Appalachian State and North Texas. Both teams of which who have had good seasons, and both teams have had very different seasons for that matter. Appalachian State is 8-3 coming into this matchup. Meanwhile, North Texas is 4-5. So both these teams have had very different seasons. There's no doubt about that. And both teams are still pretty good. Should make for a good matchup. We're going to be going over a full game preview and prediction on this one here today, starting out with your team trends. Last game, Appalachian State beat Georgia Southern, 34-26 being the final score there. And Appalachian State, I think, has been a good team this season. It's just been the last 4 games for them have just been kind of sloppy. I mean, they lost to Coastal Carolina, 34-23. It was a close game, but then again, I mean, it was Coastal Carolina. And then they lost to Louisiana, 24-21. So Appalachian State has lost 2 of their last 4. And honestly, for Appalachian State here, this is a team that's been very good over the past couple of seasons. It's just this season that's been a little bit of a down one compared to how they've been in the past few years, but still, it's been a good season. As for North Texas, they beat UTEP 45-43 in a shootout game on December 11th. So North Texas is coming off of a win here, but I mean, it's kind of crazy that both these teams got matched up against each other, considering one team is 8-3 and one team is 4-5. I mean, still, North Texas is a good team. There's no doubt about that. But Appalachian State, I mean, they're 8-3, and they're one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. So you got to consider that. Like, this is a team that was just behind Coastal Carolina for an opportunity to win a Sun Belt championship. So, I mean, if you look at North Texas here, they were a middle of the pack team in the Conference USA this season, which, I mean, then again, North Texas is a team that, I mean, middle of the pack isn't terrible, but Appalachian State, I think, is a significantly more talented team than North Texas coming into this game. But, I mean, that does not mean that North Texas is going to lose. I mean, just stating the facts here, Appalachian State is a more talented team coming into this matchup. I mean, they've had better recruiting all around. They just have been the better team as far as talent is concerned. But this game's going to be on Monday, December 21st. It will be the first bowl game of this 2020 bowl season, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time in Conway, South Carolina. Spread currently says Appalachian State by 19.5. ESPN FPI is going with the Mountaineers 90%. Vegas prediction also going with the Mountaineers here, 41-24 being the current projected final score. Nothing too surprising with our spreads or our ESPN FPI or anything like that, as Appalachian State is favored here pretty significantly. Here's a stat comparison for this game. Appalachian State's got 31 points per game, 19 points allowed. They got 191 pass yards a game, 243 rush yards. Then for yards allowed, they got 169 passing and then 143 rushing. As for North Texas, they got 35 points per game, 41 points allowed per game. So this is a team that is used to really high-scoring games. They had 284 pass yards a game, 230 rush yards. Then for yards allowed, they got 265 passing and then 243 rushing. So the defensive side for North Texas has been absolutely horrendous this season. I mean, on both sides, like with both secondary and rushing defense, it's just been a mess for North Texas this season. And that is something that Appalachian State's going to really need to take advantage of if they're going to want to win here. Is they got to start quick, and they got to make sure that they can shut down this North Texas defense early, because I mean, North Texas's defense has allowed a lot of points this season. Once again, they've allowed an average of 41 points per game. And for Appalachian State being a team that has been, I mean, they've been good on offense, but the defensive side has been, I'd say, just a tad better for Appalachian State this year. I mean, it's going to be an interesting matchup here between both of these teams. But, I mean, if you're looking at the quarterback situation here for both these teams, Appalachian State has got Thomas, who's put up just over 2,000 yards on the season, 19 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And that's also been a problem for Appalachian State this season, is the turnover margin. I mean, they've had a lot of turnovers this season. Like, I mean, you're looking at your quarterback who's thrown 11 picks through 19 touchdowns, which is not a very good ratio. And that is something you got to really fix coming into this matchup. Like, honestly, the turnover margin is going to be huge here. Like, the team that wins the turnover margin is more than likely going to win this matchup. As for North Texas here, quarterback's throwing 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, so it's not been too bad of a season for him. And really for both sides here, I mean, the rushing game has been really good, as Appalachian State's got Peoples, who's put up just over 800 yards, 7 touchdowns on the season. And then Torrey for North Texas has put up just over 650 yards and 6 touchdowns on the year. So, I mean, both teams are very good in the rushing category here. There's no doubt about that, as both teams have averaged over 230 rush yards per game on the season. Some key points for this one: Appalachian State is definitely a significantly better team statistically right now. I mean, once again, if you're looking at a bowl game, usually you tend to see more equal stat lines on the stat comparison, but yeah, this game is a little bit of an exception to that, considering North Texas does have 4 less wins than the Mountaineers do. But North Texas, they have had some good wins this season. They have had some good games as well. If you look at North Texas's schedule, I mean, they've had I would say they've had a significantly easier schedule this season than Appalachian State, but then again, they've had 4 games postponed or canceled this season. Like, they had an opportunity to play Houston, that got postponed, or actually that got canceled, and then UTEP was canceled, Louisiana Tech, UAB games were all canceled as well. So yeah, that's been kind of a problem for North Texas this season, and that's probably a big reason why they've been inconsistent, is because they've had so many games canceled. Like, they had a 3-week break there in between October. It was actually a 4-week break there between October 17th and November 21st. They did not have a game for 4 weeks in between the later parts of October into November. So, I mean, that could have an impact for sure on North Texas, and that's why this 2020 season has been so weird. But, I mean, if you look at their signature win on the season, I'd probably say it would be against either Houston Baptist in the first game, which is kind of unfortunate considering Houston Baptist isn't even a FBS team, but they won that game by almost 30, and they also beat Middle Tennessee also by 20. So, I mean, like, North Texas has played good this season, but Appalachian State, in comparison to them, I mean, once again, I think we all can agree that Appalachian State has had a much tougher strength of schedule. They've had much better wins in comparison to North Texas. I mean, if you look at Appalachian State's signature wins, like, I mean, if you look at this team here, I mean, they beat Troy by just about 40 points, which is an excellent win. I mean, which Troy's been pretty good this season, so you got to consider that. And I mean, they've blown out Arkansas State, Louisiana Monroe, all of those teams they've played pretty well against. So Appalachian State has had some better wins than North Texas, but still, I mean, for Appalachian State here, this is kind of a situation where you don't want to get upset, because, I mean, if North Texas wins this game, that would be a shocking win for North Texas. That would be a huge upset for this team. And for Appalachian State, you just got to make sure that this team does not, and that you're not sleeping on this team at the start of the game. Because if you're caught sleeping, North Texas will probably come in and beat you, because North Texas is going to be very motivated here. I mean, I can tell you that. It's just a matter of whether or not Appalachian State's going to be motivated. So, yeah, that's going to be kind of the interesting part of this game, is which team is going to be more motivated. But how each team would win this situation, I think if Appalachian State can get up by 2 to 3 touchdowns in the first or second quarter, that should be, I would say, good enough for Appalachian State. Like, if they can score more than 30 points on North Texas, I think that they should be on their way to a win here. I mean, North Texas, I mean, this has been an offense that's kind of struggled this season in some areas, and that's kind of why I think North Texas, I mean, it's going to be tough for them to put up more than 20 points on this Appalachian State team. But anyway, that being said, here's what I got in this game. I'm going to go with Appalachian State here. I mean, it's been pretty obvious by the way that I've been talking in this preview, but I think Appalachian State's the better team. 37-20 is going to be your final score. I just think, once again, Mountaineers are more talented. They've played a much tougher schedule this season, and they've done significantly better than North Texas has. I mean, North Texas has been in the Conference USA conference, and yeah, they were 4-5 this season, which is not a very good record coming into a game where you're having to face one of the better teams in the Sun Belt, which Sun Belt this season has actually been a pretty good conference, so you got to consider that as well. But probably here is going to be 75% towards Appalachian State. I'm pretty confident that we will be seeing the Mountaineers getting the win here on Monday. But I think halftime score, I mean, we're going to see Appalachian State get up pretty early, I think, and that's going to be the key reason why we see this Mountaineer team win here, mainly because, I mean, if they can start off fast here and kind of shut North Texas's defense down pretty early on in this game, that should be a huge key to success for Appalachian State here. But once again, it's the motivation factor that's going to be huge here. Like, whichever team that's going to be more motivated in this game, I think, is going to win. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on this game. If you enjoyed this preview, so like on it, subscribe as well. As it really helps the channel. I'd really appreciate that. Once again, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you later.